Now I'm back with Body Count and iced tea in Serbia. And I'm on the bus with ice and cocoa. And I fall asleep in my bunk. And we're stopped for a couple minutes. And then the driver, Stanislav, who was a Czech driver, he wakes me up. He's like, "Hey, boss, we got a big problem." I'm like, "What's the problem?" He's like, "The carnet is not stamped. They're not letting us out of the country." I'm like, "You fucking kidding me right now?" I'm like, "You're going to go back in there to that Serbian guy and just tell him that all the paperwork is going to be in order when I come in there. And when I walk in that room, I want you to walk out. Just walk out. Don't come back. Let me handle it." Okay. So Ice is down there and he's like, "What's going on?" And I just look at him. I'm like, "If I don't get back on this bus, you guys need to go to Croatia and tell them that I'm in a Serbian federal prison. And you need to get a hold of the U.S. consulate that's there and get me the fuck out of that country."
Hello, friends, everybody, all you people that should be liking and subscribing to this podcast. My name is Siobhan Cronin. I'm here, as always, with Ben and Cory. And I'm really excited this week to welcome a dear friend of mine who has also been my tour manager, but also the tour manager for so many incredible bands. He's worked with Breaking Benjamin, with Snoop Dogg. He can tell us a lot more about his resume because it's huge. Also runs a root beer company, has run a venue, like the king of business, in my opinion. We have John Phillips this week, who is a lot of fun. I'm really excited to get into this episode with you, but thank you so much for joining us. And I'm excited I'm excited for you to give Ben a run for his money, because we were talking before the show about how you have no filter. So I'm excited to see this face-off go down.
There's not going to be a competition today. We'll just consider it a meeting of the minds, if you will.
I love that.
We could turn off the sound, be like a meeting of the mimes.
I couldn't hear you over your bag of wheat thins that you just had a minute ago. It's still going. I'm just kidding. It's all good.
I just wanted everyone to know that we here at 2020 we like Nabisco. If it has a little thing in the corner, we endorse it, and I will certainly eat it at any time of the day and or night.
I was going to say, if you actually land that endorsement, being the entrepreneur that I am, the fact that it would have happened from this episode, I would like to claim a 10% royalty stake in that endorsement by any chance.
I can send some of these. I'll send at least 15 of these in the mail, freeze dried to you, and you can just get little wheat thin.
Get paid. You send me wheat thins, I'll send you root beer. We'll call it even at that point.
So. Oh, I'm into that, dude. So speaking of which, I heard you had let's just forget all the stupid shit with Snoop Dogg and Breaking Benjamin and all those bands. What's up with the root beer company, bro?
Well, I own a root beer business by the name of Parlor. We actually sponsor all the DWP festivals along with a bunch of other festivals like Blue Ridge. We've activated at them for like the last 2 years, I want to say. My partners are Josh Balls, who is on Space Zebra with DWP. He also owns a business called The Strange and Unusual, and he used to be in Motionless in White. Another one of my partners is Aaron Brook of Breaking Benjamin. He's also a co-owner of the product as well. Matt Giordano is another one of the owners. Funny enough, he does like all the marketing and back end for Breaking Benjamin. He has a creative company that he has by the name of Pressure. And then also there's another entrepreneur that's involved with us. His name is Chris Jones. He's been involved with like app development, a variety of like multi-million-dollar businesses. And he's a very close friend of ours too. But like the real story behind it is, when 2020 hit, we all lost a ton of money. We didn't know where we were going with our lives or direction whatsoever. So like I have a major event company here in Pennsylvania too. Which wound up taking a big hit, the music industry side of mine. So I was like, I lost, $1.3 million at that point. Once COVID hit, I was like, fuck it. Let's lose $250,000 more. So, I decided, like, my son the one day wanted to start trying, he wanted a root beer. And I was like, I want a root beer too. I'm like, that sounds really good. So I started buying root beers from all over the country. I think I bought like $500 worth of root beer because, when you have addictive personalities, it's like go big or go home. So, I didn't buy crack. I bought root beer. So I wound up sampling them from all over the place. And then I was just I had nothing to do. So I was just like being a dad sitting at home doing root beer reviews on Facebook, because that's really a dad thing to do, honestly. But it reminded me of a story when I first was on tour with Breaking Benjamin, and I was in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I was on tour for 3 months straight, and I was dying for a haircut. And I'm Persian, I'm Middle Eastern. Like, when we don't get a haircut after a couple months, we start to look like Al Qaeda. So the first thing that I did was, I'm looking for a place to go to. I found this great barbershop online. I'm like, this is the place. I'm like, this is where I'm going. And I wound up going into the place, and the girl says to me, she's like, you know what, just go and take a seat in the waiting room. The barber's assistant will be out in a couple of minutes. I'm like, assistant? I'm like, what assistant? I'm like, what barber needs a freaking assistant? So I go in this waiting room, and there's pool tables and video games and pinball machines and jars of jerky. I was like a total man cave. I'm like, this is badass. So I'm sitting there waiting. The assistant comes in. She's like, I'm going to put you in the chair, and I'm going to give you a massage before the barber comes in. I'm like, massage? I'm like,
what a service.
I'm like, all right. So this girl pulls out this 1950s hydraulic massage beater. It's got a crank coming out of there. She's just smashing my back. I'm like, this is cool. I'm like, $20, whatever. It's like, I didn't know what I was getting charged at that point. It could have been 50 and I'd have been happy. And the barber comes out. It's this big burly guy, had to be about, 250, tats all up and down his arms. He had a big apron on and everything. And, he looks at me dead in the face. He's like, here's what I'm going to do. He didn't ask me what I wanted. He just told me, this is what you're getting. I was like, cool. And guy gives me the best haircut I've ever had in my life. And he's like, are you happy? And I'm like, yeah, this is great. And he's like, cool. He reaches over, grabs a frosted mug out of a fridge, and pours me a root beer on draft sitting in the chair. And I'm like, I'm done. This is the end. So fast forward, this was back in 2015. Fast forward to 2000, later on in that year, and I got home from tour, and I'm sitting there, and I was like, I think I need a haircut again. And I was with my wife at the time, and she's like, all right, when are you going to be home? I'm like, tomorrow. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to fly to Knoxville from Pennsylvania. So I did. So I basically flew from Knoxville, went down, got a haircut just to see if I would get the same exact experience again. And sure and shit, I did. So I never forgot that moment. And when it came to the concept of developing the root beer company, I wanted to take that moment and stick it on a bottle to basically relate to what happened to that exact moment. So when I was explaining this to Josh and Aaron, when we were developing the concept, we were throwing around stuff the first name that I had come up with was Rock and Roll Root Beer, which thank God they didn't allow me to do that, because it's the stupidest fucking name on the face of the earth. And then we started thinking well, why not shop? Because we're sitting there thinking about barbershops, tattoo shops. And then I was like, well, what about parlor? And that's when it all kind of came together and it gelled together. So that's how that root beer company was essentially formed, was from that memory. And then we launched it out later in the year of 2021, and it was officially activated at Blue Ridge Rock Festival that year, where I actually was the I was the director of business development for that festival that year, which essentially it was like a rocket ship that year for that festival, the way that it launched out. And I mostly handled the production infrastructure for the staging, the lighting, the audio, and bringing in vendors and close relationships I had for years. So, but yeah, and then it was when we made that company, we wanted to be edgy, have a cool brand, that's where the slogan drink more fucking root beer came from, because that's what the main slogan of it is it's and we wanted to do crazy, tricky things with marketing. And I had a billboard up in the middle of Wilkes-Barre, PA, and on it, it was literally big giant letters that just said, don't do Coke, drink more fucking root beer, in the middle of the city. And
yes.
like people went bananas, like laughing their asses off over it. And the thing is that it's like, I wanted people to be excited and happy about a soda product, so it's like, and even like we were putting best foot forward with, we set up an endowment fund, for, mental health. And, we've been donating like money to like children's hospitals and things of that nature. Cause like, if we're going to have a product and a brand, even if it's like edgy and abrasive, who fucking thought root beer could be abrasive? But we wanted to have something that like essentially like gave back and had like good community impact and did the right things by it. Like, cause quite honestly, it's like, you can make money as much as you want to in this day and age, and you could do crazy stuff like I'm talking about, where, you're losing your ass left and right, and you're investing into a pipe dream. But the fact is that if you don't do something good in the end and have it impact your community, all you're really just doing is, making money and making yourself happy. And really the point of the whole thing was that, root beer was for everybody. And, I wanted the product that everybody could have fun with and get behind. And I don't mean
to interrupt, but what's wrong with making money and making yourself happy?
Here's the thing. I'm very happy without money. And I love money. Don't get me wrong. Like, I could be like Scrooge McDuck if you want me to, like swimming around Nevada fucking coins, and not giving a shit, and living up to my Persian mantra, if you will. Because maybe that's what we do. But the fact is, though,
I thought you make rugs.
No, we fly on them.
Carpets.
Those are called,
are they carpets?
No, those are called used cars for us. Those are used cars, actually. That's what we call those things.
Can we kind of go back to the beginning, and just for the people that don't know who you are, because I know you, but the people listening may not. Tell us a little bit about how you grew up, how you like gravitated towards business, and I guess sort of start with the tour managing, because it's I feel like you've had a really interesting path, and I'm curious to see what led you in that direction. Like tell me a little bit about that.
I think you're gonna have to go back a little bit further. Probably into my late teen years. So I've always been into music. I was a musician, still am in theory, for many, many years. When I was in high school, like my senior year, I was in chorus. I went to all states. I got ranked like 5th in the state for a tenor 1 part. I had full rides and scholarships to go to like 4 different places, turned them all down. I didn't want to be a teacher. And I didn't want to have to go to school to learn music, because I liked being a performer more than anything. So funny enough, I was a musician. So wait,
they were going to send you to school for free just to learn how to do something that you're basically having to pay your entire life for doing?
Correct.
That seems ironic.
Yeah, it's kind of a conundrum, and it's very much like the Prussian education system. It's like, you're really good at this. Let's find a way to get you to spend money. And it's like, fuck you, I'll do it myself. So anyways,
I love that.
So I was a musician for like 11 years. And funny enough, I was in a band with Aaron Brooke, who's in Breaking Benjamin too. We were in a band together. And actually it's funny. Like I had an original band, like we played in a cover band as well for years and years. And I used to do like 300 shows a year for 11 years straight.
As a singer, were you the singer in the band?
No, I was a backup singer, but I did lead on some things. And then I was actually a piano player, like a keyboardist. That's like my main. So I can play guitar, I can play cello, I can play bass. Like, it's mostly string instruments that I can do. But I was good at like, recording and everything also. But it's like, one day I woke up and I just said, I don't want to do this anymore, and I actually did concert promotion for a while too. I used to book shows. I had a music conference that I ran in the Scranton-Wilkes-Barre area. I used to take out 9 venues over an entire weekend and booked 106.
But who does that? That's like wild to me, because it's like your average musician that's young is not like, okay, I'm also going to do this like sort of massive operation type stuff. So, where did you get that mindset from? Were your parents entrepreneurs, or like, I don't know. That seems like that was next level.
Did your band need to play? So you're like, fuck it. You're the smart guy. It's like, I'm going to make the venue myself, make 700 people open and sell tickets for me. But it's going to be my show. Well, no, I'm curious, because I feel like you're an entrepreneur. You're a hustler. You're a freaking musical gangster. I love this. We're cut from the same cloth. So like for me, like tell me if I'm wrong here. Like when I was younger, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't play that show. I'll just make the show. You made the show. You made your own market, didn't you? You just said, I'm going to invent that. And then it was.
Yes.
Am I crazy?
No. Yes.
Maybe
and no.
I am.
I mean, crazy. Yes. I mean, but we're all crazy. No, I would say that, like, to be honest with you, I never took no for an answer to begin with whatever it is that I did, but I would say that the main reason that I was a hustler and I got to wanting to be an entrepreneur, like I don't have entrepreneurs in my family, or business owners or any of that stuff. Maybe some on my Iranian side of my family, like my cousins and whatnot. But, I actually grew up in a really, really difficult environment, believe it or not. My mom was a single mom. My father wasn't around. My grandfather raised us. We were really, really poor too. But that was okay because it taught me the value of basically appreciating anything that I worked for in life and having an appreciation for those things so that I could pass them on maybe to my kids or somebody else that I wasn't with, so they wouldn't have to go through what I went through, and like, sometimes I think that like my mom gets like, she might get a little upset because of the fact that like we didn't really have a lot, but if it wasn't for my mother and standing behind me and all the things and me having to force myself into wanting to be more driven, then I wouldn't be where I'm at today, and there was a lot of great circumstances that I had and things that I, came across that led me down those paths. Like even when I was 15, I had a mentor that essentially got me into this industry, and his name is Jeff Peters. And Jeff was the tour manager and the front of house guy for the Beach Boys for 20 some years. And I met Jeff at a Beach Boys concert, and I was just some kid that's like sitting there by the front of house barricade, like listening to Mike Love and everything. And he like let me inside of the front of house area, and he's just like, do you like this stuff? I'm like, yeah, I'm a musician. I'm like, I want to do all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And he actually like mentored me for years. And I would like to say too, that and he's still a very, very close friend of mine, but if it wasn't for him and that kindness he gave me when I was just that kid at 15 staring up at that stage, I don't know if I'd be on this podcast right now, I guess is the best way to put it. Like,
so are you blaming him for having to take such a low blow as to be on the show instead of getting opportunity cost of working root beer? Because it sounds like you got this whole root beer thing going. So, I mean, I feel like this is an opportunity cost that wasn't necessary. And I do blame your friend.
I mean, I'm Persian and brown. I just thought this was equal opportunity day on the freaking podcast, honestly.
We're equal opportunity assholes, man.
I mean... anything worth doing is worth overdoing, I guess. I don't know. Like
more is more.
I will say my favorite, not to interrupt you, but my favorite John Phillips quote that we still in Starset say to this day is
I know where
everything I have done in my life has led me to this moment. And anytime there would be a shit show or a meltdown, I just remember you saying that. You just say, Siobhan, everything I have done in my life has led me to this moment.
Do you want the original story of where that came from?
Yes, absolutely.
So I was 19 years old. I was up on this stage in this place called the Empire Club. And it was like, I had first joined this band that was like massively popular. They would pull hundreds of people every night wherever they went, like 700 to 1,000, like a fucking cover band, like just drawing people in droves. Like, this is great.
As a keyboard player, cellist, are we a cellist now? What are we now in this band?
Just a good looking dude. Honestly, that's all it was.
I'm with you.
But as a keyboard player, so this place every Sunday that we played was loaded with underage people, strippers, and drug dealers. Like, total fun time. Okay. And we're on stage, and this stripper comes up on the stage, and she just starts taking all her clothes off. And I'm like, I'm 19. I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm like, this is, it's not like nobody's going to not look away. I'm like, this is hysterical. So right next to the stage, there was a DJ booth, and there was this Rastafarian DJ guy, big long dreads and everything. And he looks over and he's like, hold on, I got it. And we're like, what? This motherfucker pulled out a live chicken from underneath his DJ table, a fucking chicken. And I'm just sitting there, and he lets the chicken out, And this chicken is just on the fucking stage, like clucking and bucking. There's this naked girl on the stage, chicken running around. And I'm sitting there to myself and I looked, I'm like, I'm like, every decision I've ever made has led me right here to this moment right now, because it's like, where do you see that shit? Like nowhere. So it's just like who carries a chicken? And funny enough, I told that story to Boz, who is a front of house and TM as well. He just does the Pretty Reckless. And he was the first PM I ever worked with, and it was with Breaking Benjamin. And he looks at me, he's just like, well, I want a chicken. I was like, well, careful what you wish for. So like we showed up in Corpus Christi, and I wanted to make sure that they were reading the rider. And I demanded from the venue that they bring me a live chicken to front of house that day, or we wouldn't play the show. And sure as shit, there was a fucking chicken there that day. I never saw him so happy in my life. It was great.
You are the king of getting like everything that you need and want on a rider. I mean, like all of the funniest moments that I can remember because of something that you demanded. But anyway, go ahead, Ben. What were you going to say? I was
going to say, you had said, where else do you see that? And I can tell you, because I've seen it. I was outside Grant Park in Chicago, right on Lake Michigan, at the beautiful beaches, right there in Chicago. And it's in between Lollapalooza, I want to say, one year, and some lady just comes up to me and she goes, could you please watch my chicken? Just hands it to me and walks off. I literally am holding a chicken on Lake, and I'm like, what the flying fuck? And the chicken was all maimed. Its beak had been cut off. She's like, yeah, I stole it from a slaughterhouse. They cut off their beak. I'm like, oh, take your chicken back, lady. And then she continued to tell me that she got arrested for being in the giant fountain, like on the front of Married with Children. That's in Grant Park for Lollapalooza, that she was naked the day before with her chicken. And I was like, yeah, I think you need to take her chicken back. And the craziest thing was 5 years later, I was in San Diego. I met some girl randomly at a bar, and it turned out that was her aunt. She's like, yeah, my aunt one time got like caught naked with a chicken at Lollapalooza at Grant Park in like the giant fountain. And I'm like, what was her name? And then I think my buddy pulled up his Facebook and was like, is this her? Because we had pictures of us holding the chicken. So all of my life had led up to that moment. All those decisions.
Small world.
Yeah. Chickens. Who would have thought?
All the decisions you ever made in your life had brought you to that moment. Right, brought you to that mutilated chicken that you had right then and there. Like, oh my God.
Well, coming back around, you were talking about you were in a band. Sorry, we went off the rails a little bit, but you were in a band and booking out, venues and all of this stuff. And like, so the question originally was, like, how'd you get that entrepreneurial spirit, which I think we've answered, but I'm curious to see where did that lead to from there? So at what point did you transition from musician to going more on the production side or more of the management side?
I just woke up one day and I was just sick of playing. It just happened. And one day, honestly, like I had just had enough. So what happened was, like, I took time off. I opened an event company, and I was really like I was into the fact of basically like doing events and like building out like weddings and galas and stuff. Like I have like a big event business that does that. And then I basically got a call from Breaking Benjamin, from Aaron, asking me like, where do I rent a barricade? And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, basically like, we're looking to do a show and we're going to do like this thing where like Breaking Benjamin's going to come back after 6 years. But it's like a first come, first serve thing. We're going to announce it online. I'm like, that's cool. You can't do that. Like, flat and simple. You're going to have pandemonium and it's going to be a fucking shit show. So what happened was that I wound up being the promoter for the show for Breaking Benjamin that they did for their first return after 6 years. So I had like a bunch of like, I had my ASCAP and my BMI, licenses. Like I had like all my liability insurance. So I was like, I'd done events in that room before. So I put it up on my ticketing platform and it sold out in, 3 minutes.
Your ticketing platform?
Yeah, like I had like my own, like not one that I own, but basically like the license for it essentially. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Persianmaster.com is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought Ticketmaster was a monopoly, but you own apparently the event company. You're the promoter. You're the ticketing company.
Are you your own Ponzi scheme?
You know what? One way. Yeah. I
Tell
actually,
other Persians about me.
I actually audit, my own taxes, and basically like it has to go back to my own internal IRS thing, that I have. It's like, it's all good. So the fucked up part is that once it sold out, what the venue didn't tell me is that they had recoded the venue. So the show was oversold by 40 people per night. Town council starts flipping out about it. They threaten to shut it down. So I'm like, here we go. So I'm like, so I go to the town council. Like I have to go to this town council meeting with the mayor, the fire chief, the police. And they're all like, you should have known about this. I'm like, nobody told me the building was recoded. I'm like, I've been doing events here for years, whatever. I'm like, you just wound up doing it. And they're like, this is going to be a problem and blah, 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 blah. And we're going to have ticketing. Like we're going to have to ticket cars left and right. And, there's going to be all this crap. I'm like, well, isn't that how you make money? I'm like, you're fining people. Like, what are you bitching at me for? And they're just like, well, now like the fire department's got to get involved because you oversold the show. And I'm like, what do you guys need? I'm like, just tell me what it is. And I'm arguing with these people for like 2 hours. So like, we need to send the fire chief out there and we need like a donation to the fire department on top of it. I'm like, fine. I'm like, what is it going to cost? This is 2 hours into this meeting. And the guy looks at me, he's like, I don't know. He's like, it's a lot to ask. I'm like $150. And I looked at him. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, literally, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I put down like $300 on the table. I'm like, I'm leaving. I'm like, you all have a nice day. I'm out. So lo and behold,
that was way more than $150 of your time. I would have lost my shit.
It was such bullshit.
That's such small town politics.
That's so hilarious, dude. You're like, wait a minute. I could have got that. I would have given you $500 just to get those minutes back from my life.
Literally, like I would have just laid the money on the table, like to start with. Like, give me a parking ticket. I'll pay for it. It's fine. Like, but so I wound up doing the shows. They were a huge success. And then Ben didn't have a tour manager to start, so he's like, do you want to tour manage my band? And I was like, well, you're like an A-level band, and I've never tour managed a band. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. He's like, well, I think that's why you'd be good at it. And I was like, okay, that's fine. So that's how it began. And, it's funny because if it weren't for him and it weren't for Aaron, I wouldn't have launched into such an incredible career doing this as I have today. And I'm very grateful for that. Like, that's something I can't repay that debt, So it's, I give a lot of homage to Ben, and I give a lot of homage to Aaron for even allowing me to do that. So kudos on them. I mean,
yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, great. I mean, listen, they trusted the minority to lead the charge. What can I say?
Okay. But as a minority that has no idea supposedly what he's doing, they must have seen something in this Persian man. Like that, maybe you're the Prince of Persia. I loved that video game growing up. But they saw something in you to be like a tour manager, which, I mean, I have an idea of what tour managers do, but could you explain? So you're being thrown into this. Do you have any idea of what a tour manager actually does? And did you do that? And how did you what was the learning curve?
Mistakes. Mistakes are the greatest learning curve. The thing about being a tour manager and a production manager, like, here's the thing. Everybody in life, when you're a kid or you're a teenager, they think that you're in a band and that like there's a tour manager and there's just this guy that like fucking rolls around with the band, getting them whatever they want. Like there's that stupid stigmata. It's like, oh my God, like there's going to be girls backstage and drugs and booze and this and that. And to be honest with you, there probably is with some bands, and that's okay. That's what it is. For me, that's not for me. I think that a tour manager is nothing more than a problem solver, and that's the biggest thing. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, being a tour manager means that you have a lot to do as far as logistics for an entire operation. That involves travel, that involves, hotels, that involves knowing talking with specific people in so many different departments from venues, knowing how to establish parking with places of where you're going to. What are the, tour budgeting? What are the tax implications that you're going to deal with venues? The funny thing is that I'm actually a tour accountant also, which is a big thing of mine, and knowing about money, because one of the things that I try to watch for any artist is letting them know, like, hey, you're overspending here in some of these areas. You have a problem here with this, like you're eating into your budget. Like, again, it's the artist's money. At the end, if they want to spend the money, that's their prerogative and that's what they want to do. But it's my diligence to let them know that they're being maybe over frugal, or they're going into their bottom line where they may incur a loss, or they're not doing the proper things to watch out for state taxes, or they're not doing the best thing that's, best for their business. I'm kind of an anomaly in the sense that, like, I am an entrepreneur and a businessman, and there's not a lot of tour managers that are like that. There's a lot of tour managers that have side hustles, but not ones that are running multi-million-dollar companies, outside of being a tour manager, and I've been asked by my mentors before, like Mary Jo Spillane, Guy Sykes, Mary Jo's done Shinedown. She's out with Ghost right now. Guy Sykes is out with Volbeat and Godsmack. Blaine Britton is out with Disturbed and does Greta Van Fleet. And some of them have asked me, they're like, you have businesses, and they're like, you're out on the road, and like, why are you doing this if you have like businesses at home and you could be at home? And like, my response is like, honestly, it's like, this is labor of love. There's not a lot of people that actually fit the mold of being a tour manager right now also. And to be honest, it's like, you get to see so many incredible things, have a great network, great people, and if it wasn't for me being a TM, I probably would not be having that established network that even helps my businesses on top of it also, so it all kind of like wraps and goes hand in hand. But to get back to your original question, a tour manager is a responsible party on the road to ensure the financial, logistical, and operational aspects of a tour happen precisely as they are supposed to. And if they are not happening, they solve those problems on the road in the most cost-efficient way, and any way that it suits all of the personalities that are out there possible. Because to be honest with you, a tour it's like being married to many people at the same time. It's like being in Utah every single day, honestly. That's the best way that I could word it.
I love the caveat of personalities, because I feel like that's something that's so unique to the music and art world, where it's like you have to be prepared for all of these funny idiosyncrasies and preferences that people have, and like cater to that. It's fascinating.
There are definitely personalities that I've encountered on the road, from artists and crew alike, that I will not forget as long as I live. There are specific stories that I can certainly say have had quite the impact,
Please do.
Give us an example, please.
Oh, God.
You don't have to name anyone, and you also don't have to share if you don't want to.
But you're allowed to.
But you are definitely allowed to.
But why wouldn't you?
So there was this instance with an individual whose name rhymes with Don Rachant. And so we were, I remember going to Russia with the band for the first time with Starset, and which was probably, to be honest with you, the show that the band performed at a facility called Red was probably one of the most incredible shows I've actually seen of any band perform before. And I'm not just saying that because Siobhan's on here too, but like, there was just something about that performance that was just incredible. And I had warned Ron going out before, and I said, do you have a carnet for your gear and everything? Because we need to know it's going across borders and countries and everything else. And a proper manifest. Yeah, I got a carnet. Well, it's specific to your gear that you have now. Well, it's close. Well, that's not what I asked. I'm like, is it specific? So the first thing that I discovered when getting to Chicago is that the carnet was never exported out of Australia. So they never closed the carnet the last time they went to Australia, and I had to heal this carnet inside of the Chicago airport.
Question, what the hell is a carnet?
So a carnet
is that beef?
Yeah, not the Spanish word for
Carne
meat.
asada? I don't
No,
know.
not carne asada. It's spelled Carnet. Like think of Carnet, but be like French and fucking bougie with it and Carnet. So
Like Target.
Yeah, like Target. Yeah, like you get in your bathroom and you're trying to pull back the shower curtain before you take a shower. Like that's exactly what you would do. It's basically a manifest and like it's like a passport for your gear to go country to country, and so that you're not being taxed on the gear when you're bringing it into the countries, essentially. Mm-hmm. So, and it like designates it from the country of origin and its value and everything. The issue was when we got to Russia, we didn't have enough vouchers in the carnet, and the carnet needs to come with its vouchers from the country of origin. So the other issue is that two of the cases that Starset had went missing from Air France, and they showed up the next day. So we had one voucher left, enough to get it out of the country. But the problem is now because the gear was split, we needed another voucher. So now we are out of vouchers, and we are in Russia with the band's gear. So I'm sure that Homeland Security will probably come back to us after this podcast. The Russians forged carnet export vouchers for us in order for us to get the gear out of the country, to which it was then driven. It was then driven into Belarus and then into Ukraine, and then we sent it back. We took Turkish Airlines to come back home to the United States.
Did they do that gratis, or did they? How much did you have to pay them?
That brings me to another story.
Russia provides the best stories.
From Russia with love.
Let's go.
So fast forward now 6 months, and this doesn't have anything to do with Starset. Now I'm back with Body Count and Ice-T in Serbia, and I have a carnet again. And we had a production manager at the time, and I asked him, I'm like, please make sure you stamp the carnet coming out of Hungary into Serbia because I need to export it again. So we get done with this gig in Belgrade, Serbia, which was like, I don't know if you've ever been to Serbia or not, but like you cross the border going in from Budapest into Serbia, and the first thing you see is a billboard that says McDonald's 100 kilometers. And that's what you have to fucking look forward to. That's the first thing that they want you to know. There's one there, and it's there. And Belgrade actually is really a cool place. They still have buildings there with missile holes in them. Like that's a thing from like the Yugoslavian war and everything. Crazy show. We get on the bus. And, Siobhán will laugh about this because she knows how I was like back in 2018 or 17. So I crack open a bottle of wine. I'm like 2 to 3 glasses deep. I had enough. And I'm like, I'm going to bed. And I'm on the bus with Ice and Coco. And I fall asleep in my bunk. And we're stopped for a couple minutes. And then the driver, Stanislav, who was a Czech driver, he wakes me up. He's like, hey, boss, we got a big problem. I'm like, what's the problem? He's like, the carnet is not stamped. They're not letting us out of the country. I'm like, you fucking kidding me right now? So I go downstairs and I'm talking to the driver again. And he's like, what do we do? I'm like, here's what you're going to do. I'm like, you're going to go back in there to that Serbian guy and just tell him that all the paperwork is going to be in order when I come in there. And when I walk in that room, I want you to walk out. Just walk out. Don't come back. Let me handle it. Okay. So Ice is down there and he's like, what's going on? And I just look at him. I'm like, if I don't get back on this bus, you guys need to go to Croatia and tell them that I'm in a Serbian federal prison and you need to get a hold of the U.S. consulate that's there and get me the fuck out of that country. And he's like, all right. That was it. All right. So that's cool. So I go upstairs, I go get my bag, I go grab the carnet, I go out to the bus that's next to us. I find the production manager and I'm like, listen, did you get the carnet stamped? He's like, well, I gave it to the guy. I said, that's not what I fucking asked you. I'm like, did you get the carnet stamped? And he looks at me, he's like, well, I handed it to him and I grab it back. I'm like, listen, this is now mine. That's it. You don't get to touch this anymore. I said, and a week's pay is gone from you. Flat and simple. It's over. I said, because it's going to get donated back to this. So I find my merch guy. His name is Greg. He has like big, long silver hair and everything. We called him Endless Summer because he was just like a surfer dude. And I'm like, go get me $1,000 worth of merchandise out of the back of the truck now. So he goes and gets me it, hands me the merch. I got my bag. I'm like, I'll be right back. I go into this office and I walk in and there's this big Serbian fucking headed guy, because Serbian, like he's got a big head, like literally it looked like a fucking box. And there's 2 guards behind him with AK-47s all shouldered up. And I'm just like, all right. I'm like, we're going to fucking roll like this today. I'm like, it's fine. I look at the driver and he goes out. Walk up to the glass and I've got my bag. I got everything. And he just looks at me like dead staring at me. And I just said, here you go. And I slipped the carnet under his desk and he opens it up and €2,000 fall out right into his lap. So he like now like just counting bills in front of me, and I'm just sitting there and he's counting like one after the other. And I'm like, yep, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I'm fucked. I am so fucked. Like I'm just sitting there waiting for it. He puts the money down on the table and he looks at me, and the guards look at each other. And then I take the merchandise and I slam it underneath the glass, and he's like looking at all this shit that I just got from all body count gear, and the guys are all looking at each other, and he just puts it down. I'm like, all right. So I grab my all access pass with body count and I just put it under the table, and he looks at the pass and he sees Ice-T on it, and he looks at the merch and he looks at the money and he looks at me dead in the face and he's like, you can go now. And I'm like, great, perfect. This is fantastic. Stamps my carnet. And I'm walking out and I just hear, ho, 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 hold up. And it's the 2 guards with guns coming after me now. And I'm like, here we fucking go. I'm like, now I'm going to prison. They look at me and they're like, they look at the bus and they look at me. They have their guns in their hands and they look at the bus and they look at me again. They're like, Ice-T? And I'm like, let's go on the bus. Let's go get some fucking autographs. Let's go. Like, let's have a great time. Let's meet everybody. I'm like, and I bring them on the bus, and, you know, the guards come up and they see Ice. They're like, Ice-T. And Ice is like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, just sign shit. We'll be fine. Just sign it all. And they're like signing stuff. And they're like, we take selfies this, selfies that, signing this, signing that. And they're like, you come back anytime. And then they like are walking off the bus. The bus driver's wearing his custom body count hat that we got him. They're like, this is ours now. And they take the fucking hat off his head and they walk out the door and they let us go on to Croatia. And that was the day that if you want to talk about being a tour manager and problem solving, that earned me a gold star that day. So that's my story.
Oh my God.
I was wondering how long I could keep my asshole clenched. That was terrifying, dude. I was like, where is this going?
Me too. I thought
you were gonna be like, and then they had a helicopter, and I just saw my buddy hanging right above Brazil. I'm like, oh, Colombia. Ugh.
It was fucking gnarly.
So, what did Ice-T think about after this? Because you're like, what the fuck? Like, did you guys have like a debriefing after? Like, hey, bro, he was gonna blow your head off, or like fucking sign that shit.
Yes. So we actually, the bus takes off and him and Coco were down there, and Coco's a very good friend of mine too. He looks at me, he's like, yo, he's like, the fuck was that? And I was like, I bribed him. He's like, you bribed them? I'm like, yeah, I bribed them. He's like, you could have gone to jail. And I'm like, I know. He's like, you could have been in prison. I'm like, I know. He's like, welcome to the crew. And he went back to bed, and that was the end of it.
Damn.
That was our debrief.
No, I mean, I've never been a tour manager, but I'm always amazed because coming from the classical world, I had no concept of what a tour manager was. And it wasn't until I got into Starset really, and like seeing you and, the things that Ron has done and other, TMs and just seeing other bands touring. It's crazy, especially when you go overseas into some of these far off places, what you have to do.
Yeah. Siobhan, you had a little issue in Russia, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. And I think I told this on a previous episode, but this was after your time, John, but we were in, Vladivostok, Russia, going to Khabarovsk, which was, far eastern Russia. It's not like going to Moscow, St. Petersburg. And you know how they give you, when you go into the country, you get this card that they put into your passport. It's not the visa, but it's like some sort of like permit that you have to show to the hotels when you go each time they ask for this card. So anyway, you're not allowed to staple anything in the passport. So at some point mine fell out or disappeared. And I show up at this hotel in one of these Russian cities, and they're like, "Oh, where's your little card?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I had it when I got on the plane, and it's missing." So I get dragged off to this like scary, scary police station with a similar situation that it's like they're saying like, "Oh no, it could take a week for us to process another one of these cards," and we had to leave like on a flight the next day. And we had like a Russian handler with us who came, and he was like, "Oh no, but this is like American rock band. Like she has to leave like tomorrow." And I don't know what exactly he did, but I think something along those lines happened. Is like probably some bribery and some merch and some tickets. And all of a sudden it was like, okay, here you go. Right there.
The funny thing is it really exists the same in a lot of countries. It's, Russia is just much more, open out in the open when it comes to that. And, the funny thing is, Siobhan, it's like, even with the current climate that's going on right now, like there's still a lot of friends of mine in Russia and contacts that I work with, and that goes from the distributors to, promoters and everything else. And it's like, it's a real shame that, a lot of artists have lost quite a market to play in. And,
Sure.
taking the context out of that too, like obviously like the war that's going on is a very terrible thing and it's awful, with Ukrainians and the Russians and like, I will say that anytime that I've ever been in that country, the people that we worked with, whether it was, I was with Starset or, with Ben or whoever else, like they were always wonderful. It was always a great time. And the fans of Russia are rabid. Like there are no fans in the world like them. They are crazy for music. It's probably because obviously like they're stuck in the middle of Russia, and they're not used to like such an outside world, like, that we have, we kind of take it for granted sometimes, but I feel your pain because I know that if you went through that, I'm sure it was quite the ordeal for you to deal with as well.
Yeah, definitely. But you're right. I mean, my memories of Russia and even the show that you referenced at the beginning of the episode that we played in Moscow, it's still one of the most memorable shows I've ever played. And it's a shame not to be going back anytime soon, but
I'd say, in a good decade, it'll probably right itself. I don't think it's going to be any time before that though. I bet 10 years at least it'll take to that.
Yeah.
That's
easily.
my guess.
Before we started the episode, you and I were chatting real quick and you started, kind of just listing off your current artists that you're working with. Can you kind of go through that real quick for our listeners, just to get just to get the appreciation of the fact that you're running these companies plus working with these people at the moment, and then maybe tell us something that's happened recently while you've been out on the road.
So currently, I tour manage Falling in Reverse. Tash Sultana, I production manage, and I do some like tour directing for her as well. And Tash has been wonderful to work with. Tash is one of the largest like Australian artists like in the jam and like kind of pop world, and has been very, very wonderful to work with. So is Falling in Reverse. Those guys are phenomenal. They the sweetest dudes on the face of the earth, and obviously like Ronnie is like really been striking a lot in like the music scene, and as far as like his differentiation in rock music for incorporating hip hop and rock and metal and all and everything. Snoop, I still do work with as well. I had the honor of actually coming in and assisting with his mom's funeral back 2 years ago. His mom had passed, and I got a call to go out for his mom, Beverly. And we wound up doing like a 3-hour long, like massive funeral show. I was flying in, acts from all over the world and coordinating with them, including John Legend, Kirk Franklin, the Williams brothers. Like it was like going to the Grammys. The performances were unbelievable. I tour direct Filter, and I also do Eagles of Death Metal as well. They another wonderful group of human beings that I love all of them. They're the sweetest people you could ever imagine. And there's a lot of controversy around Eagles of Death Metal, obviously due to the terrorist attacks that happened at the Bataclan that happened years ago. Yeah. So there's a lot of extra layers of security that I have to work with that band. I recently just worked with Wu-Tang, and I production managed them too.
Which one of the 19? The Tao of who?
All of the Woos and all of the Tangs.
Not Dirt McGirt. Do you guys have a hologram for him yet?
No. It's funny. Tarif is their tour manager, but I wound up coming in as not a PA, but a production coordinator on the last tour. But I wound up doing a lot of it, and Chad Fuller, who designed the whole thing and production managed it. I worked with him, and he did a phenomenal job on the overall design of that tour. I wound up now production managing them for upcoming tours that they're doing and stuff too. Tarif and I have a long history together because I actually tour managed Public Enemy also. And we worked together on the Gods of Rap tour in Europe. Can
you please get them together with Anthrax? And
I love that actually.
Because I just saw Anthrax last night, and Scott Ian tried doing all the Chuck D and Flava Flav shit, and I was like, man, how cool would this be? If I saw that mashup live now, that's all of my life, all the decisions I've made have led up to that moment.
I sincerely hope that you use that quote going forward on this podcast every week.
You could tell Chuck D. You could tell Chuck D. That's exactly what I mean, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart because he means so much to me, especially with Scott Ian going behind it.
I texted him earlier today, and I told him what a phenomenal job he did on the Grammys last night. Chuck is a really good dude, and I'm proud to call him a friend also, which is really neat. I'm trying to think who the hell else am I working with these days also.
You've already listed so many. Oh my God. It's mind blowing how many people you've worked with.
Well, I still do. I co-manage and tour manage Body Count now with Ice-T. And then I manage another band that is now rising out of the Pennsylvania market by the name of Another Day Dawns. I know that they actually toured some shows with you guys, Siobhan. Mm-hmm. And Dustin and Ron, it was actually great that they allowed them to go out. We just got them a very big and gracious record deal from Century, distributed by The Orchard. They're releasing their new track in March. And then we have some big touring plans for them coming out in April and May. So it's been quite the story for those dudes also. Then they're young too. They're only 24 to 26. But they've been having a blossoming career already, and I've been very fortunate.
I think I love all the you sound like a tour manager, with the press release, but let's get into the deep of it all because you represent some pretty interesting people. So when I first heard Falling in Reverse, I was on Blabbermouth and I heard these guys can't play a show because they don't have their laptops. And I went and listened to the music and I was like, okay, hold on. I like this band. But that seems lame to me. So I'm just wondering, but then I realized maybe I'm old and I'm a DJ, and if I didn't have my laptop, I couldn't DJ. Although I do have a thumb drive. So what's up with that, man? Should I be angry about that? Because they're nice people, you're saying, but should I be angry or not angry?
You should. Okay, so there's two sides to this story. So side story one is that the laptops went missing. And there was a gentleman that was working before me, and we wound up tracking them down once I got involved with the band, and I had them delivered to my room in Beverly Hills where I was at the time and got them back in my possession. There was a misfortune where somehow their gear got kind of trucked all over the country. It was very loosely done, and then I had to put it all back together, build out manifests and everything. The thing is about bands is that every band has their niche and every band has their craft for what it is that they do. And, every band has their values for what they view that they want to portray to put on to the fans. Now, as much as it's the fans that are paying for the ticket for the experience for the fan, it's the band's responsibility to live up to that experience for what they believe is their artistry. in all due respect, I've seen a laptop that Starset used that was basically being held together by a fucking cooling tower of water in Japan, running at Mach 10, the way that it probably shouldn't have been. But what I will give Dustin Bates and Ron credit for is they wanted that piece of gear to function because it was an integral part of the show in order to make the band work. And the thing is, to me, I understand how people view laptops because it's like, oh, it's like cheating or this or that, but like, to be honest with you, it's not like not all bands have a keyboard player, like Starset just came into a keyboard player with Cory, and the thing is that took time to get it to that point.
Okay, hon, let's stop for 1 second because I'm with you. Because I believe that, you know what, like I know that Starset has a redundant computer so that if their computer, because they're fucked if it's gone. But Ron is smart enough to know he needs to have another redundant computer and probably 3 other backup plans and a jump drive and it all up to the cloud so that if something goes on that they still go on in Tokyo. So now doesn't it come down to a logistics thing where like, shouldn't they have, because now I have all of my DJ stuff on a thumb drive so I can just plug it into tables anywhere. And so if I forget my tables or I forget, like, there's my whole library. Shouldn't it be like that at this point? Because it's technology. I can get this to my head according to Elon Musk.
The redundant was also missing at that point, and not only was it it was both of them at the same time and the playback rig. So the problem is that all of the gear and everything that essentially made that function wasn't available. So it could have been put together very last minute, potentially, but it also could have opened up the potential for a disaster on stage and could have made things worse. So, I got to say that, I got to respect Ronnie and the band's decision for wanting to do that. And to be honest with you, it's like, I got to laugh at the hypocrisy a little bit of it too, with the whole Sebastian Bach and Eddie Trunk thing and everything. Cause they're like, oh, fuck you and bands and you can play without tracks and this and that. And these bands don't play without tracks. And it's such fucking bullshit. Cause it's like, Ronnie was right. Guys are praising Aerosmith for being a true rock band. And I know there's a fucking Pro Tools rig or Ableton or whatever that's blasting out 10 fucking harmonies to Dude Looks Like a Lady. He's right. There's, the thing is that a lot of bands do use tracks. There are some that don't, but that's their craft and that's what they're built on. And the thing is that at the end of the day, if a band is built for a show, and if they do have safeguards in place, and they do have all of these things that are being done to protect those safeguards, and let's just say everything fucking goes wrong, which is exactly what happened. They just had extremely bad luck and everything went wrong. And then the internet went into a fucking shitstorm and frenzy over it, which, at the end, I kind of had the last laugh because I found the laptops and they were in my fucking hotel room, which I was actually laughing hysterically about because it's like, millions of people are freaking out about these 2 Mac laptops and here they are in a FedEx box because I found them in some fucking place in Boston. But the thing is that what I can respect is a band canceling a show because they're not able to perform it. What I cannot respect is a band going up on a stage and just being a bunch of fucking jerk-offs and not caring about the fans that are in front of them and half-assing a show to begin with. That, to me, is more of a problem than it would be to actually cancel a show. And to be honest, I've seen some meltdowns before on stage with certain acts, all of which will remain nameless because, there's no reason to drag that kind of shit up. But I will say that if anything, it made for great press and PR in the end and definitely put, the internet ablaze talking about the band essentially. So who's to say that everybody, I guess the best way to put it, everybody loves a good story. Everybody loves a hero and everybody loves a villain. It's sometimes the villain is actually a hero in a villain's mask, and sometimes the hero is really the villain.
Does that mask look like Sebastian Bach?
Let's hope not. I would say that, all of the greats out there, and all of the ones that are the ultimate rock stars know how to create controversy. I think that like nobody ever remembers, and this might be a little harsh thing for me to say, and I apologize in advance, but like nobody really remembers the ones that played it safe. At the end of the day, like I'm probably going to get knocked for this at some point if somebody ever watches this podcast. It's like,
they don't worry about it. It's over.
That's fine. Like you all remember Axl Rose, or you all remember Kurt Cobain, or fucking, Scott Weiland, or, Vince Neil or Robert Plant. And you're like, oh my God, those guys were great, but they didn't play it safe. They were completely out of the box. It's like, it's not like you have a bunch of dudes running around the place in society going, man, fucking Trust Company was that fucking band, honestly. Or like, Stabbing Westward, they fucking nailed it, dude. Like they were that
I just love how edgy Hoobastank is.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the reason, what? And the funny thing is that I actually love that band. They're actually a really great band.
They are a great band.
But they, the thing is that it's just like the ones that are viewed as the ultimate rock stars, or ones that change things, have a little bit of sense of danger to them. And honestly, I think that's the thing that's the most exciting about music, is that it's not just supposed to be a medium that like uplifts you or changes your life. Some music is meant to be dangerous, like Twisted Sister was a prime example of that too. Where like Tipper Gore went out of her fucking way to slap a parental advisory lyric on all of these discs and albums and anything. And look what happened in the end. All it did was made everybody buy more music with that sticker on there, because their moms, their dads didn't want them to listen to it. And it wasn't it was against societal norms, and that, to me, I think that's the thing that makes society progress and music progress as well, is that when it changes stuff. And hip hop does the same thing too. I would say that like I've been really blessed with the fact of working with rock, metal, pop, and hip hop artists. There's not many TMs or people in my end of the industry that consistently do that revolve around all of those genres. And there's a big misunderstanding and misconception sometimes between those genres. And, maybe the reason that I fit in with all of them so well is because you've got white guys, black guys, and I'm a tan guy. I'm just like an Oreo cookie stuck right in the fucking middle of it all.
Did you call him Snoop? Did you call him Snoop Lion for that 6 months?
Nope. No, absolutely not. I just call him Snoop.
Speaking of the fact that you're working in all these different genres, which you said isn't common for a tour manager, are there any kind of clear differences in the approach or the tours between like a hip hop show, a rock show, a pop show?
Hip hop focuses a lot more on audio. They don't have like, there's not a lot of hip hop shows that I've done are like specific with like time coding, regimented, specific flows. Like, don't get me wrong, they all have a set list and for what they work with essentially, but it's like, it's just a different environment. I would say that of all the genres to work in, rock is the most difficult because it's always the one that's expected to be the most finite for what the expectation is, essentially. Like, don't get me wrong, hip hop has its expectations too. But the thing about, and I don't mean like, I would say active rock is more in that genre rather than just like straight up like rock bands, essentially. Like Eagles of Death Metal is a straight up rock band and they're phenomenal at what they do. Like if I would actually tell people, if you have an opportunity to go see a show of theirs, go, because if you really just wanted to see a great band to have fun to, they're it. There's just something about them that is just incredible to watch musicianship wise. The cultural aspect is really different between all of these. And one of the things that I've always wanted to have was a bridge between all of them, because, music's just a fucking buffet in the end. It's just a matter of what you want to sample at the end of it. And it's a matter of, expanding your horizons. And listen, I'm the first guy to say, like, in the music industry, there's racism that extends in that also. And I don't mean racism in the fact of being, hating on another person for their skin color. I would say that there's a racism in the sense that there's a fear of not understanding the concept and culture of exactly how those shows and operations work sometimes. It's not easy to take somebody from the rock world and insert them into the hip hop world, because the demeanor and the language and the mannerisms and the approach are completely different. And that's okay. And that's totally cool. But the expectation, though, the funny thing is that hip hop makes a lot more money than rock does at times. But the end goal is really the same out of all of it. I think that one of my favorite things about working in all of those genres, though, has just been the great relationship and team building that I've had with so many different crew members and so many different artists. And it's working with your mentors and your heroes also. That goes for rock too. I never would have thought that I'd be standing next to, Snoop or Chuck D or, the RZA or You God or YDB or any of those guys in hip hop, and actually knowing them on a friendly basis. Even Siobhán from Seven Dust. Siobhán was one of the main reasons I got into music to begin with, because I remember being I think it was maybe 13 at the time, and turning on MTV, and TBT was their label that they were on, and they were promoting Black from that album that just came out. And I remember being who the fuck is this band? It was just a sound you didn't hear. It was hearing Smells Like Teen Spirit for the first time.
Can I tell you that I know exactly how you feel about it, because I got the Ozfest 97 double album Best Buy thing that you got for going to Ozfest.
Yep.
And it was the first time they released Black by Seven Dust. I remember thinking that this was the most badass song, that even though my friend had bought me fish tickets to go see them November 27th, 1997 at the Centrum, during the intermission, I ran over to the, I think it's the Espresso Bar, and it was Snot, Seven Dust, and Human Waste Project. And I still have it signed on my wall. I saw Lynn Straight with Snot, with Mikey D, Doling, who comes on the show sometimes, into Seven Dust. And I can say unequivocally, having seen them 20-something times in my life, that there's almost no band in any genre that is more a well-oiled machine as far as Seven Dust, as just kicking your fucking ass, grabbing you by your neck, and literally rocking you, but then making you want to cry. And Siobhan has that Cory Glover thing from A Living Color, where he's a fucking black dude with dreads that sings like he grew up in a fucking church, but then he's mad. He's really angry. And then you got Morgan Rose back there fucking screaming. So yeah, man. And Morgan does all the tricks that he learned from Shannon Larkin, but he made him famous because he looked fucking angry, and it's awesome. And what an awesome band. And then Clint Lowry, when he sings, holy fuck, that guy sounds almost as good as Siobhan. Christmas Day, I thought that was Siobhan until Siobhan comes in. I'm like, who's the guy that sounds better than Siobhan? Oh, that's Siobhan. Just saying. So I experienced the same thing.
Dude, it's I have to agree. It's that Seven Dust is a band that, quite honestly, destroys stages when they get on it. They're phenomenal to watch, musicianship wise, songwriting wise. And, that's another humbling part of my job is, Siobhan was a mentor to me in music, when I was a kid, me looking up to him and being man, I really love to get involved, in the industry, and hearing that voice for so long and loving those songs. And now the fact that I consider Siobhan a friend, is a really humbling experience. And quite honestly, it's for the bands that I've worked with, that have trusted me enough to work with them, it's been, it's humbling, and it's a real reward, because it's how many guys can really, hold on, let me word this in a really funny way. How many tan Persian equal opportunists can really sit there and say that they've had that kind of an experience in their lifetime to work with all these people from all over the globe, I've been blessed with having businesses on top of it too. I have a beautiful wife. I have 2 beautiful kids. I have a fat ass cat and a very nice dog as well. And to be honest, it's like I've had like 10 lifetimes in not even a half of a lifetime. And that's pretty cool. My grandfather lived to 114, so I'm only 42, so I'm fucked. Like I might have like, this might only be a third of my life for all I fucking know.
That's incredible. Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's a true story.
Yeah.
He was an old school Iranian, like I learned about. Like he actually worked for Iranian Secret Service, like way back in the day when my father told me and everything. I mean, he was also 40 and my grandmother was 15, which everybody calls Megan's Law these days, by the way. But that was Iranian Persian culture back in the fucking 20s. So it's like shit changes, I guess. Whatever. So
kept him young, apparently.
Yeah, whatever. Must have been some.
You could take me behind the barn and just put me out of my misery if I'm like over fucking 80.
Oh my God.
On my 80th birthday, just take me out back like a gold yeller. Just fucking.
If I'm still going,
over my head.
If I'm still going, let me go. If I can't move or function, I'm with you. Put me in the car with a 8-ball and a fucking bottle of scotch and let's have some fun.
Just go with a bang. So what do you have coming up? Like what's next for you at this time in your many ventures?
I got some stuff like on the table right now, like working with Tash. Like I got to do this month. I'm advancing tours for Snoop. I'm advancing tours for, Eagles of Death Metal. I'm working on stuff for Falling in Reverse.
We're not very smart. So not Siobhan, she's smart. Cory and I, when you say advance, I normally think to myself like that's what my dad would put against my bike, for my allowance next week if I put all my dishes away.
This is another TM term.
So
TM,
basically,
is that trademark? Trademark? Isn't that like the little?
It would be known as preparing, essentially, like doing my studying, if you will, for my actual exam, I guess is the best way to put it.
So wait a minute, are you to come to Boston with Snoop?
Not Boston, no.
Oh man, Cory and I were totally going to be like, "Yo, man."
Ben would have hit you up in a second for tickets.
Well, listen, just so you understand, I'm a DJ, and I want to tell you how I know how awesome Snoop Dogg is. So, you remember Columbia House? You could tell this to Snoop; he'll appreciate this. So, like, you got like 12 free tapes or whatever for the price of one. So, I got the Chronic and I got Doggy Style, and because I was a child at like a 13 around when gangsta rap, like the Ice Cube, Dre, Snoop, like the whole Compton, that whole thing happened. Just at the end of NWA, after NWA, and I remember listening to the Chronic and Doggy Style and a little bit of Naughty by Nature, all back to back. And my dad walks in. There was a song in particular on the Chronic called "The Day the Blanks Took Over," and he said, "Where did you get this?" I said, "I saw it on MTV," and he cut off cable and canceled my Columbia House thing. And I remember thinking to myself, "Oh yeah, this is badass."
For 1 cent.
But I remember thinking to myself, "This is badass." Like my dad didn't say that about Iron Maiden when he's singing Bruce Dickinson singing about Alexander the Great. My dad's like, "Oh, that's historically accurate." But Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, he was none too pleased.
I have a really good story about that Columbia House shit. So I worked. No, like this is a true story. You're gonna actually laugh your ass off at this. I worked at a place called Heavy Grass, which was a weed company in Culver City, and I worked with. I was the production manager for a weed company for about 6 months. I would fly back and forth from the East Coast to Culver City, and I worked with one of the owners. His name is Keeve Huffman. And Keeve used to be the head of marketing at Columbia House Records, and he owned this company called Heavy Grass now. Keeve is the guy who invented the 10 cassettes for 1 cent while he was working at Columbia House. That was his invention, believe it or not, and his marketing promo. So the guy that like all those fucking flyers that went out all over the country in your National Enquirers and TV guides and all that shit, that dude invented it. I never forgot that. And I looked at him. I was like, we were out to like lunch one day and he told me that. And I was like, wow, I'm working with a legend.
Well, I'd be upset because I'd be like, I still owe you money.
Yeah, it's like that was the trick.
We all
like,
owe you money, dude. That's the problem. Like they'd be like, oh, forever. Here's where it ended. They sent me a Dwight Yoakam CD. I didn't ask for the Dwight Yoakam CD. You actually had to tell them not to send it to you, which is definitely a no-no legally now. So like they sent it to me and I was like, I don't want to pay for this. My dad was supposed to cancel it. $19.99 plus like $8.99. It was one of the full price ones. I'm like, Dad, I'm not paying $28.99 to Columbia House. And for like literally 2 years afterwards, my dad would get letters be like, you owe $64.99 now. It's like in arrears.
Yeah, they would spend $70 to collect their 30 and like fucking postage stamps and shit, which is just like backwards thinking in and of itself. But whatever, it's all good. I trust me. Like it'd be like, we're gonna get you your 10 cassettes for 1 penny, but we're gonna fuck you and you're gonna get smacked with $240 in shipping costs. Like that was the catch. Like they had you too. Like you're fucked. I get it. It was cool. So, but yeah, I mean, basically, like, just continuing to plow through and work on tours and artists and expand. And, like I said, like I'm working closely with the band that I manage, making sure that the launch of their song goes out, as well as possible. And I don't know, continuing to create. I'm going on vacation with my wife to Costa Rica for a week in March. That's going to be fun, too. So
hell yeah.
That sounds badass.
Yeah, we're going with our friends too and everything. I mean, my wife's been my rock. She's, I'm very lucky that she's very understanding of this career that I have. So, and I can't really stress that enough too. Like
that's
she's
amazing.
been
No,
important.
I don't know. I mean, I tour with my husband and the idea of someone being at home while someone's away, that's really hard. I mean, it takes a really strong partner, I think, to be able to do that. So she's amazing.
No, she's the best.
Being as eclectic as you are with so many businesses, so many things going on, one question I have is how the fuck do you manage your time? Please tell me, because I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. And second of all is how do you maintain a work-life balance?
Well, my one company, MCR, I'm very fortunate to have such a strong leader. My number 2, his name is Brian. And funny enough, a lot of people that I work with in crews and everything like that, they actually know Brian really well. Because it's funny, a lot of crew guys that that have had time off in multiple acts, they actually come work for my company, believe it or not. They during the pandemic, even when the chips were down, I actually wound up getting a massive multi-million-dollar contract from a resort that we were facilitating because I went and hustled. I thought that the best thing that I should do is get out back with the venues and establish relationships. And then these venues started having their trust in me, and we built massive bridges to, company infrastructure. We came into a massive windfall, and, I looked at my bottom line, and I knew I was going to make a lot of money. And this kind of goes back to our conversation that we had before about who doesn't like money and who doesn't, want to get rich and all that stuff. So what I did is that I called in crew guys to help me execute this massive resort job that had no work and weren't doing anything whatsoever. I basically said, I'm like, I want to pay you a bunch of money and let's get to work and we can be up here with this resort for like the next couple of months. And you can actually feel like you're like kind of whole again, and actually have like a purpose with stuff. And, I probably sacrificed a couple, maybe 10 or 20 grand out of my bottom line for stuff. But to me, it was more worth it to help out people that were down and that were not, out to go with their livelihood. So they actually, like, going back to it, like, they all know Brian, who's like my number 2 in the company. All these crew guys, for some strange reason, sometimes come to MCR and doing stuff. When it comes to a work-life balance, I have to plead guilty in the fact that I'm not the best at it. And there's a lot more work that's sometimes not so focused at life, which I'm trying to be better at times, I feel like with a little bit more revenue streams that come in with that, I'll be able to put more people in place. And to be honest with you, it really has not been easy in any line of industry that I had since the pandemic, because there's been such a shortage of workers, such a shortage of trained people as well. And it's not like we're not offering to pay people a lot of money, but it's the same thing as far as crew guys inside of the music industry. They're still few and far in between. You can't find a lot of great people. There's still a lot of people that are getting trained in this shit. The biggest problem with the pandemic is not the fact that you had a year or two off. You also had 3 years of training people. So it's a 5-year catch up just for the ship to essentially right itself. So I'm 42 now. I figure, 6 more years of this chaos, I can either A, retire, or B, I'll be dead. We'll figure we're going to bank on A.
Or you'll live till 114, in which case you have 2 other lifetimes to go. So
yeah,
let's be optimistic here.
At 114, Siobhan, maybe I will be doing another podcast, where I'll be talking about, back when I was 42, back in the old days, we all used to have sex just to keep warm. Like, who the fuck knows? Like, honestly.
Can I ask you another question I've wondered? So the Eagles of death metal, like, are they, is that a misnomer? Because they are neither the Eagles and nor are they death metal.
I think that was the shtick that Jesse Hughes wanted to go with. And it was just such an outlandish title for a band, essentially, because they're not a death metal band. And, but if there's one thing about Jesse, he's got a lot of bravado, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, everything is always like big, impactful, fun, and I think that was such a massive detriment to him when that incident happened with the Bataclan. And Mark Pollock, who's their manager, is a very good friend of mine. And I love working with Mark. He's very headstrong, and he's very determined, and he's very forthright about everything that he gets done or wants to get done with his bands. And I have a lot of respect for him. But when the Bataclan incident happened, and over 100 people were killed inside of the venue, and as much as Jesse is all about embracing and having people around and loving everybody, like his music is just like that, where it's just, he wants everybody always just to have such a good time. It was a violation of natural order, and especially in the music world, and I think that goes with any band whatsoever. And we talk about security, like, it's never a problem until it's a problem. But imagine being at a show and having individuals coming in and mowing down over 100 innocent people that were there just to celebrate and have a great time with a band and with music and with each other, for that matter. And I've been to Paris with Jesse, obviously years after this happened, and I wasn't involved with the Bataclan trials. However, I was involved with working with the French government to get him in for the Bataclan trials this year. I actually had to fly him in from Norway secretly into Paris under strict heavy guard for him to testify against the last person of ISIS that's in captivity with them. And, he still has a bounty on his head, so imagine working with somebody over there that, like, ISIS wants dead. That's fucked up. Just because he's a musician or because he was just picked, like the universe is really fucked up in those kind of ways, and the one thing that I will say is that I established a really good brotherhood with Jesse. I love that guy, like, in the whole band, like a family, the same way that I would say it about any of the Starset guys and girls as well, by the way. And I think when it comes down to it, as far as the natural order of things, it's like, look, like, people go to a club or an arena or an amphitheater or wherever it is, or even on a street, to escape maybe their everyday problems, or just go to a band to listen to what they can relate to them, because there's something about that band that brings it out for them. And when we go back to, like, that discussion about that band with the Bataclan, I think it impacted just about every band around the world, to be honest with you, because nobody could believe that something like that could ever happen. And I hate to sound morbid when I say this. It's not going to be the last time, and it's not. And the only reason that I say that is because if everybody thinks that it's not, you're all fooling yourselves. I mean, look at Las Vegas when there was the shooting with 60 people were killed in the outside there. The world's got some scary problems and some scary issues. But the one thing that I will say is that no matter what somebody can do in those kind of an instances, I don't think regardless, it will ever be a deterrence that people like myself or like Siobhan or like Jesse or, Dustin Bates or Ben or Ice-T, nobody's ever really going to stop doing what they're doing. And I think that's the ultimate reward is that not everybody, and Siobhan, this is a testament to you too. Not everybody has the ability to get up on that stage, and it's a gift that you get to have every single day.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. Amen.
Yeah. Dude, listen, man, I got to tell you, I love your hustle. I think that you got something down. I mean, and by the way, what an elevator pitch telling me about that delicious root beer. Like I just got my hair cut. Like what it's a sensual thing. Like I'm getting my back rubbed. You're like, it's only $20. So the Jew in me is like, yeah, my hair looks fucking boss. And then you're like, when you think it can't get any better, he pulls out a frosted mug, which just by itself, it like connotates such a lovely visceral experience. And they're like, I'm so bought in on that. I love that. And then you're like, and then I lost more money than you'll make in your entire lifetime, but that's fine. I'll lose at least 6 times more than you'll make the next 10 years. That'll be fine. I can afford to do that because I know numbers, and I'll bounce back. And then you work with Snoop Dogg, and like RZA's calling you up, Dirt McGirt on the Ouija board. Like, man, I respect you. I just want to say thanks for coming on the show. Maybe you should send us some root beer.
Yeah. You know what? All you got to do, you just send me the address for where it needs to go to, and I will send you all a care package.
Do you want to be our first? Awesome. You want to be our first official sponsor on the? We'll drink the root beer on the show.
Yeah.
We'll talk about your root beer on the show. We actually
don't discount David Ellefson. David Ellefson sent me coffee, but only me. He needs to be sent to all of us so we can all simultaneously pick up our root beer and all drink it in tandem. Which we'll do. We'll bow to any sponsor. Like I swear to God, like Wayne's World.
There's an awesome company. So like the office building where I have my office at, like it's in downtown Wilkes-Barre. Like it's a 4th floor. I have the whole 4th floor of this building, and there's like subdivided offices that like I basically like sublease out, and we all work as a creative engine. So Matt Giordano from Pressure Firm, he has an office there. Josh Balls has an office with. He and I together. But there's another company that's in there called Dead Sled. And Dead Sled is a coffee company. So they're the company that's been white labeling the coffee for Motionless in White, for Rob Zombie, for Disturbed, for Nightmare on Elm Street, like all this crazy shit. And it's so funny because we're all just like running in the same circle together. I actually just got like Dead Sled hooked up with Eagles of Death Metal. They're going to do like a thing for them too. And I was like, I was busting his ass. I'm like, what about Filter? He's like, well, maybe we'll do coffee filters for Filter. I was like, boy, that's fucked up. Like, it's like, no, you get no coffee, but you could get filters for Filter. Fuck it. Whatever. It's cool. No, but I will send you root beer. I will gladly send you out some root beer if you want it. I will send you some swag too.
Listen, if we didn't want it, then you didn't do your job properly, sir. You painted that fucking picture. So unless I literally have PTSD for root beer, which I don't, I mean, it's not one of my favorite drinks, but like you've put that like thought in my head. So now I'm going to be waiting like a little kid on Christmas morning to find if there's any root beer by my door. And then we'll shamelessly drink it.
I got
shamelessly.
I don't want you to drink it though, because that is shame. I would want you to drink it only if you liked it. That's it.
Oh no, I'll drink it no matter what. And if I don't like it, I'll just be like, I'll tell them how much I love you, and that if you like root beer, it's probably good for you.
You know what this reminds me of? Like it reminds me of like the Noah's Arcade thing from Wayne's World now.
Yeah, Noah's Arcade. I opened my mouth and out it came.
It's fucking incredible. Jesus Christ.
Parlor beverages, correct?
Yep. It's
where can people get this? Is this available everywhere? How do people get their hands on this stuff?
So there's a big thing that we're doing right now. It's localized and it's done a lot with e-commerce. Our e-commerce platform is huge. You can find it at drinkparlor.com. But the company is actually going into a seed round right now, and it's raising capital. So basically, everybody can actually buy into the company essentially and own a piece of the company. It's the way that we have this structured out. Like we had to go through rigorous amounts of paperwork and everything with the SEC and all this stuff. So it's like the company is going to expand now into the hands of the actual buyers is the way that we have this. So our goal is, and we'll be at all the festivals again this year. Like we'll be at Welcome to Rockville. We'll be at Blue Ridge. We'll be at Incarceration, Aftershock, like all of these, all the big DWP.
Is this still an excuse for you just to get backstage and hang out with all the bands you love, just like how you got all the venues and made all the shows for yourself? And like you just create your whole life. You're like, what can I do? I'm like, I'm just going to do this whole root beer thing so I can hang with Metallica.
They're off limits to me, I'm sure, as far as that's concerned. They're on lockdown. I'm like, the funniest, what the funniest thing was about the root beer is that like, it's obviously focused a lot on rock, in that genre, but just keep your eye on it throughout the next couple of months, because I think you're about to, there's some big news we're going to unleash, but there's about to be a bridge with it between rock and hip hop.
Hell yeah.
Listen,
man.
dude,
Awesome.
You should get Chuck D in a commercial. You know what I mean? And get like Scott Ian from Anthrax, and you should like break down a wall like it's Aerosmith Run DMC, like get the homage to everything, and then they can just pull out the Parlor and just drink it right then and there, and it'll be the bridge for rock and rap and R&B, and then RZA can pull out, just walk out with Snoop and be like, hey, we like it too, and cut scene.
Did you say that you said you're a DJ, right?
Sometimes.
That's like saying you're kind of pregnant. You either are or you're not.
No,
so
I'm
which
a
one
DJ.
is it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, so here's the thing. I can't say I'm not a DJ because it's like I couldn't have my band play the Four Seasons in Boston and pay me $3,000 or $4,000 to bring my lights and, look like I'm doing Earth, Wind and Fire or Avicii, whatever. But it's one of those things where I've never had more high level people thank me for doing so little. For me, at least, I didn't realize how having great taste and having perfect timing, it's just natural. So I'm just like, whatever. I know how to find. We're just gonna go into, we'll go here. September. Listen, if I play Earth, Wind and Fire, September, all right, at the right time, every time.
I have an objection about your timing, but
it's gotten better since you outgrew me a long time ago. I've train wrecked at least 35 gigs since then. But yeah. It's one of those things where the people will look at me in my eyes and like, you're literally helping my life. I've had Marine, like sergeant majors coming up to me and say, thank you for playing my request. Only as a DJ. I could play concert piano. Literally, I'm a decent pianist. Just, you understand. I could play a Rachmaninoff piece. No one gives a shit. They're like, sir, can you please walk away from the piano? That's for the hotel lobbyist pianist. You're just staying here. Please walk away from the piano. They don't care. But if I DJ, fucking A, they give me like a drink at the bar for free.
This fucking guy's great.
On that note,
he's got a point.
John, dude, thanks for hanging with us. And you're gonna have to come back in about 80 years. We'll be ready to die. You'll be starting your 105th business, but we'll have to get an update. And we're definitely gonna try. We're gonna try some of this root beer for sure.
I'm gonna send it out. I'm gonna send it out to you guys.
Thanks, John. It's delicious. I've tried it, but I will happily drink it, and we will toast with it on the show.
I got you.
We only had one other sponsor, which was David Ellison Coffee. And David Ellison, the bass player of Megadeth, he's the only guy that's maybe come on the show that could compete with you as far as how much shit he has going on. I don't know if he's doing it as effectively as you, but he's a writer. He's got a coffee company. He has a movie that's winning all kinds of awards. He's in like 14 bands. I think he's done things with Chuck D. and all kinds of crazy people. David Ellison. So I think that you guys have become the bar as far as if you want to do everything. Dustin started his own universe, so he's got that. But like you multitask. But you multitask. Like in this universe, you certainly are subdivided amongst more, and I love it. It's like the greatest portfolio of any human being ever. So thank you. I admire you.
It's my pleasure. Maybe we should do like maybe we'll do a podcast with both, you should get both David and I on it and see if in total fucking chaos ensues and what could possibly happen.
We should do a roundtable podcast with John Phillips. I feel like you would be a great moderator.
I'll send this to David. I really will. And we'll serve him. And if he doesn't want to come on, then I don't know why he's scared.
Then we'll find someone else.
It'll probably be because I'm brown. That's about it. So.
Well, John, no, really, thank you so much. It meant a lot to me that you wanted to come on to the show. And I mean, you have so many stories, like more than we can fit in even like 10 episodes. So you'll have to come back and we'll have to do like a round two, an update at some point.
I'm down. Whatever you need, Siobhan, I'm always there for you guys. No questions asked.
Thank you. No, you're the best. That's for sure. That's one thing I can say. You can always rely on John Phillips. You always get everything together for everyone. You take care of people, and you're the best.
If we want to stalk you, is there like an Instagram we could follow? Do you tweet?
Yeah, how can people find you?
How are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not on. You know what? It's funny. I'm on TikTok, but I don't make any TikTok videos. I just like to watch the videos. But it's funny because it's like for some weird reason, I found out like I had like 1,500 followers and I've never made a video. And I'm like, no, and this is fucked up. I was like, why do I have fucking followers on this thing? And it's because Snoop follows my TikTok. So, and then I was like, okay, I'm like, I guess that, yeah. So, my Instagram is under, MCR Persian, go figure. There's no go figure. It's just MCR Persian. And then my Facebook is just John Phillips. That's it. That's
Parlor Root Beer. How can everyone find that one more time?
You can find it like on socials. It's all under Drink Parlor, and at website it's at drinkparlor.com.
Awesome.
Very cool. Make sure you guys check it out, and always check out 2020-d.com, like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
Well, perfectionism is a form of fear, really. You're worried about outcomes. You're like, well, what if it's not perfect? And you have to it's not going to be perfect. So you don't even know what perfect is. That's like the first thing to let go of. It's not just that you have to let go of it's not going to be perfect. Let go of the idea that you even know what perfect might be. It could be, you could draw a map and make it, have engineers make it exactly like you think you want something to be. But then it turns out somehow maybe you'll hate it in a year. Like you need to let go of the idea that there is such a thing as perfect. So that helps a lot though, because then it frees you to really just focus on what you like. And I would encourage everyone to is trying to really create for themselves. Forget all this proven things to somebody else. You're going to show everybody fuck all that. That's never going to get you anywhere. This is coming from in you. It needs to be for you.